What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Hangover. This is another Hangover. Myself, Shannon, with me, and another one where the Steelers still have not yet signed Aaron Rodgers. We're still Aaron Rodgers less. I didn't know if we are going to make it this far. How are you feeling, Shannon?
Same as before. I mean, if they're willing to wait, I'll save my opinions to see what happens.
There you go. There you go. I think that if we're doing this same thing next week where there's still no news, I think that might end up being the decision that there is going to be no news. I think all eyes are on this Wednesday. There's some sort of event in Pittsburgh hosted by
with Pat McAfee. Yep.
So looking forward to that. Looking forward to Wednesday night to get it over with. If we go through Wednesday and nothing happens, what would your thoughts be then at that point?
Well, again, the what it's going to cost, we really don't know. Again, we've heard what's 2 years. I wouldn't go more than one. I wouldn't go more than 30. There's been talk of 40. So, but you really need to have your plan in place before you go into the draft. That way you could really focus on, you're either going to have a 1 year shot, you're going to really go all in, and to strengthen the team around an aging quarterback, or you're going to just try to strengthen the team till you find your next quarterback. And like when they did a knee jerk reaction, Ben's last year, and said, well, we need a running game. Well, instead of focusing on the offensive line, they tried to give him more weapons than Harris and Freiermuth, and that was a complete disaster. So hopefully they've learned from that.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully so. I think, though, that if it doesn't happen on Wednesday, I think the chances of him being a Steeler start to decrease at that point. I think that's the tipping point. For me personally, I've not heard or seen anything saying, oh, if it don't happen that night, it's not going to happen. Obviously, it can happen. I just think the likelihood of it happening, I think right now, it's pretty high. I think that all indications are he's going to sign. I think the owner, the coaching staff, Omar Khan have all indicated that they've had great meetings with Aaron Rodgers and, Art Rooney saying that all signs look like he's going to be a Steeler. And kind of the way he said it kind of indicated to me that they probably have already come to some sort of agreement and maybe perhaps just waiting to announce it to everybody. But I do think that if that day comes and goes, then maybe perhaps that percentage starts to go down. Maybe he's going to wait to see, during the draft or training camp, if maybe perhaps there's an injury or if there's a team that gets desperate for him that's willing to pay him a little bit more. I think this Wednesday might be one of those calendar days to look out for, in my opinion. But the Steelers have had a few players coming in for their 30 draft prospects. And for those that don't know what that is, can you explain that to them, what these 30 players are, who they are from the collegiate league or from the college realm coming over to visit the Pittsburgh Steelers?
The owners and the GMs and the coaches, the decision makers get to meet these young men at the Senior Bowl and the other bowl games, after the season's over, and then at the combine, and they get to do all these different interviews. But again, that young person might talk to, 4 or 5 teams at the bowls, personnel, and then at the combine, they can talk to, it's unlimited. They can talk to every team, I guess, if every team wanted to talk to them. So this way, if you bring them to town, you get 30 official visits where you can actually just have their undivided attention, and you could really, it's more intimate, and you could go over what we got to see a little bit of it on Hard Knocks last year with the Bears and guys that they talked to during their official 30 visits. And it's just a glimpse into the player and and for the prospect, the draft prospect, a chance to see how the organization is, how they run, kind of a pecking order. So Now, of course, if it's a local prospect, it's regional, like a kid from Pittsburgh, let's say, or WVU, those do not count to the official visits. But the Steelers have been bringing in, usually if the guys they draft, especially in the early rounds, they go through all three. They'll talk to them at a bowl game if they're in it. They talk to them at the combine, and they talk to them in the official visit.
Good deal. Yeah, and I think at this point they haven't gotten their full 30 yet. They still have a few more to come through, but I think that you can kind of get an idea of what position of need that they're going for. Maybe perhaps even what round they're going to be targeting said position. For instance, if you're seeing a lot of guys in one position expected to be drafted early, then you can kind of indicate, or you can kind of believe that maybe perhaps they're targeting said class.
Yep.
And if you guys haven't checked out the website, stillcurrentnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage, we have a tracker, so that way you guys can get an idea of who's visited, who hasn't visited. Here recently, there's been a couple players who are either going to visit or just visited. One of them is Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. I think he's expected, top 60. I don't think he's a guy that is going to be in the first round. Him coming in, is this a guy that the Steelers are hoping falls to the third round, or do you think maybe perhaps this is some sort of indication that they might be trading something to get up into the second round?
Well, I think they're going to try to trade up or trade back and then to acquire a second round pick. If they trade back in the first round, I think there's different things that it would shock me if they don't try to get back in that second round, because like I said, after the fourth round, the draft is dropping off this year more than a lot of years. Last year's draft was very deep, and there was a lot of guys on rosters from the fifth and sixth round. I don't think you're going to see as much of that this year. There's always going to be some, and I think it's more projects. But Trey Amos is a guy that really stood out at the Senior Bowl. And luckily the Steelers have already had some contact with him. But, they want to invite him in and talk to him because, as you say, that's a guy second or third round even is a great value.
Yeah, I think so too. Another guy that the Steelers have brought in recently is Dylan Sampson. And again, you can see all this at stillcurrentnetwork.com. Read the articles, get involved in the conversation here. Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee. I think there's a clear indication when you look at the running backs that the Pittsburgh Steelers have brought in. I've been kind of saying this for a little bit now that I think the Steelers are going to want a home run hitter.
Yep.
They want a guy that's going to be able to get out there and just hit that knockout punch. And a lot of speed. I know a lot of us would think or hoping maybe Genty falls maybe to 12, somewhere around 10. Maybe the Steelers can go up and get a guy like him. But as you said, if they're trying to acquire more picks, I think running backs is kind of deep. Maybe this is an indication here that, I think the Steelers noticed that and they're going to look at the running back position, maybe round 3, round 4. Where do you see the Steelers acquiring a running back, if at all, in the draft?
Well, again, I was thinking second or third round before the trade for Metcalf. So that now it's like your one of your options could be gone. That's still why I think they would want to move back. There's going to be value at running back in the third and the fourth round. A lot of these guys are, I don't want to say a one-trick pony, but they're more known for their speed. Like Scatteraboo from Arizona State. A lot of people like him and talk about him. And I love his heart and how he plays. But it's like Harris all over again. He does not have breakaway speed, not instant acceleration, and he looks for contact. Even when he gets an open field, he's looking around who he's going to hit because he knows he's not going to run away from anybody. The Steelers desperately need speed. So the guys they're really focusing on is more your home run guys. Some of the stats, Daniel, that's coming out is incredible. Henderson from Ohio State, I think his last 3 never fumbled, none. And then he's a great in pass protection already. So's the other young man from Ohio State. And I cannot think of his last name now. But he is the same way. He fumbled one time, and he's an excellent blocker. You got DJ Giddens from Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys out there. The young man Sampson from Tennessee. He's speed, man. And all these guys are going to offer you kick return potential, pass catcher out of the backfield. Even the Johnson, the young man from Iowa, if you look at him, he's like a Le'Veon Bell clone. He's not got great top end speed, but he's very smooth, start, stop, and instant acceleration, kind of like Le'Veon had. And Le'Veon could just stop and start and get back to speed quicker than a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
So he just set defenders up like that all the time. To me, Johnson is very similar to that. Yes, thank you, Jay's Upper Teeth. Judkins is the other running back from Ohio State. And if you've seen Judkins, it's the same thing with Genty. When these young men have their shirts off, these guys are jacked. We talk about muscle hamster with Warren. These guys all fit that profile as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and Steelers definitely need one. I said if they draft one, just as a little bit of a pun, because I think that there is no question that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be drafting a running back in this draft. Now, let's kind of take a little gander at the players that the Pittsburgh Steelers have brought in. I know some of this says pre-draft visiting rumors. Some of these have been already confirmed, such as Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. You also had quarterback Tyler Shock. Sorry about that. And I think those are the only two quarterbacks that have made it into Pittsburgh. I know a lot of attention with Jackson Dart. Is he a guy that if the Steelers are going to draft, they have to draft him in round one?
I don't think so. I think that the Kenny Pickett draft there's going to be a lot of people talking about the quarterbacks, but other than Ward and Sanders, I don't see anybody else going in the first. I think early second, people will want to try to get up to try to get Dart. And if there's anybody else that they're really interested, they're saying that Milroe from Alabama, who has long been rumored that the Steelers like him, that he's going to come to the draft, the green room.
Oh.
And I'm like, to me, I got a third round selection grade on him. I don't know why you would go in unless because if not, he's going to be sitting there. I just think it would be crazy to go, but he took the invite. So maybe some teams told him, we're going to take you if you're there late in the first, or try to trade up late in the first to get him. But I do not see it. You do not spend your first round, in my opinion, just on potential.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, this could be another Will Levis situation where he was in the green room and didn't get drafted, left. I think he was drafted in the second round. I'm not necessarily certain if Milroe will go in the second round, to be 110% honest with you. I think he may be that third round type of guy. I think he's a guy that might be there for the Steelers in the third round. But, I agree with you. Jackson Dart, Shock. These guys also, it's not, well, first and foremost, it's not Sanders either. It's not one of these other guys that are expected to go up early. So I don't think quarterback is going to be draft there. But let's just say Sanders is there. Did you catch his? I know they're not calling it a pro day. They're calling it a oh gosh, what was it, like a show out or something? Did you catch it by any chance?
Basically.
Showcase, yeah. Did you catch it?
Yeah, I watched what I could. They showed a good bit of it on NFL Network.
Yeah, there's a good amount of it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And like I said, I think it's kind of the Baker Mayfield comparison. And I know I'm not the only one that's made that, and I've been making it for a few weeks now. Baker Mayfield could play for the Browns, and even with the volatility and the expectations of the fan base, he could handle it because his self-confidence is unshakable. I mean, Baker Mayfield believes he can make any play, that he is the best man for that job. And he took Cleveland to the playoffs, beat the Steelers. He had to places they hadn't been since Bernie Kosar. And then he hurts his non-throwing shoulder. He fights it out thinking he's doing something for the franchise. People get crazy because they went back to their normal Brown stuff. And they blamed it on him and they let him go. I think that was a terrible, terrible mistake. And I think that the proof's in the pudding, especially the guy they replaced him with on a fully guaranteed contract. I think Sanders can come in and the game itself, you know what I mean? The culture, the whatever franchise, the fan base, he's been around it his whole life. I don't think it'll be too big for him. Now, will his skill set translate on an NFL field? I questioned it till this past year. And then seeing him make pinpoint passes in small windows behind a very poor Colorado offensive line 2 years in a row. He showed the maturity and the commitment to stand in there and take big shots after big shot to complete a pass. You're going to have to be able to do that at the NFL level as an early round pick because you're usually going to a team with a bad offensive line. So he impressed me to the point that if the Steelers took him at some point, if he fell down in their range, it would not shock me because I do think he has more long-term potential than Ward has.
Well, I do think that there's a good chance that he might end up falling a little bit. I think a lot of folks are saying that, or at least a few folks in a couple of places that I was watching on the TV there with the mainstream media were saying that it seems like his draft stock might be falling after his showcase. I watched it. I thought he had a pretty accurate deep throw, but the rest of his throws were questionable. Accuracy was questionable. The ball just kind of wobbled through the air almost for a while there. And I think it was Jay Glazer who was actually commentating on it live on the program that I was watching the showcase on. And there was a couple of throws and it took almost like about maybe a third of the way into it. And then all of a sudden, maybe a little bit of the zip started getting there, but he started throwing the ball deep down the field. Now, his deep ball throw, as far as accuracy goes, it's pretty good. I mean, it's really good. It's elite. They were comparing him to Russell Wilson when it came to that. And, I thought that his showcase may have kind of, dropped his draft stock a little bit, so to speak. So he may be available there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe not at 21, but at least high enough that they can go up there and get him if they want him. I'm not necessarily sure he's that high on their board.
I've seen guys, mega focused in these situations. He seemed very relaxed. And some of the throws did not look like game throws. And I'll kind of, let's play a little mind game here. You don't want to be drafted top. If you're going to go to a certain team and we know the Mannings have done it, different people's done it. Deion's staying out of it, he says. But if you want to fall to a more competitive situation, a lot of times you'll see guys, perform a certain way. Because I'll say this, in the game film, the balls didn't wobble like they did I agree with you, and it was mentioned during the showcase that some of the throws were not in character with what we'd see. Because I've seen he put the ball right our guys. And a lot of off-platform stuff. One thing that he has and Jackson Dart has is they can complete passes off schedule, off platform. Not just the play breaks down and they got to move and they keep their eyes downfield, but also the throwing angle. And we see that out of Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, the quarterbacks nowadays, Daniels for the Washington. These guys can do that. And I see that quality in both young men. And as much as I want to say, well, Jackson Dart, he played in the SEC. So, one of your Power 4 conferences. So, Both guys have proven capable against some, future NFL competition. So, but I wouldn't want to trade up. But if somebody fell in a certain area, I think they'd have to consider it.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to do our first ever, well, at least our first ever hangover mock draft. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. And we're back. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon. And before we get back into the conversation, I know we talked about it earlier, but I want to remind you guys of our website, SteelCurtainNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check out the articles that we mentioned at the top of the show. But also after the show, go check out our audio-only podcast where you'll catch mine. I just aired out on this Saturday, and it airs out every Saturday, called State of the Steelers, only where you find the Steel, everywhere you find podcasts and audio only podcasts. So it's not on YouTube. All righty. So let's do this. I've done a PFF mock draft earlier in the week. In fact, I did it on my State of the Steelers. I've never done an ESPN one, so I hope I set it up correct. So this is live. So hopefully we did this good. All righty. So let's begin. We're not going to do any trades. We're going to do just 4 rounds. All right. So we're going to end up making 3 choices. And let's start this. And it's just going to go quick. So, oh, man, I was hoping it would let me see who's been drafted. All right. So Cam Ward went 1. Abdul Carter went 2. Edge. What do you think about that? Abdul Carter to the Browns. I would have thought either Shador or Travis Hunter there for sure.
Well, the Browns already, invested in Garrett. And now they're going to put another guy on the other side to make life hard on everybody in the AFC North if that does come to pass. Those Penn State guys, a lot of them have a good track record at that position. And he is a very talented young man. So they got Kenny Pickett, so they probably don't want to reach for a quarterback there.
There you go. Yeah, they do have Kenny. They do have two glove, Kenny 2 glove. Raiders end up getting Shador Sanders in this mock draft here. Ashton Genty goes to the Bears at 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He gets out there. Let's see.
I thought Genty could go to the Cowboys is what I'm expecting, but who did the Cowboys get?
The Cowboys go Will Campbell, offensive tackle.
Well, they need offensive line, so.
Yeah.
I think if Genty's there, they'll take Genty.
I think so too. Omarion Hampton, running back, just goes right before the Steelers to the Broncos. So let's see who is available for the Steelers. There's a cornerback, edge, linebacker, defensive tackle. We have Derek Harmon. Defensive tackle Derek Harmon. Matthew Golden, wide receiver. He visited the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speedy guy. He could be a wide receiver 1. I think if you go with Matthew Golden here, you might be trading somebody to get back in the second round, like a George Pickens. What do you think if you go Matthew Golden?
Well, there's talk that Golden's a better number 2 to Metcalf's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as impressed with Golden as a lot of my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's guys that fit the Steelers that will be available on day 2. But in this, I don't remember what wide receivers had already been selected.
Let me see. So wide receivers that have been selected. There was the one in Dallas, which was the Dolphins, McMillan.
Okay, yeah, it's the young man from Arizona. Yep.
And that is it. Wait,
So
yeah.
They're saying that Campbell's going to be the number 2 guy off the board.
Yeah. This one here, number 2 guy off the board is Carter.
No, I mean the number 2 wide receiver. The second wide receiver taken.
Yeah. The wide receiver is McMillan. I say Campbell, I don't know why for the Cowboys, but it's McMillan for the Dolphins at 13. And that's the only wide receiver that has been selected now at this point. On the board, though, there's Golden. Walter Nolan is available from Ole Miss. Let's see. Cornerback Thomas, I can't pronounce that, but he's also was a visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jackson Dart is available. He also visited the Pittsburgh Steelers. Trayvon Henderson, running back.
I don't know if a lot of people see. You got Emmanuel. I can't say his last name. Saved my life.
Igubugula. I said that so
that's
wrong.
That's about how I say it. But I think that you want a guy because there's a few positions of need there, but you want a generational guy. As I've said before, that because out of the last however long, the Steelers have one All-Pro they've drafted, and that's TJ Watt. They've got to get better. The last 6, 7 drafts, the first round pick has not even got a second contract. So that is a problem. The one safety from South Carolina, I don't know if he's still around. I can't say his last name either. Afton's got it up here for me, and I still can't say it. Emanawari? Nick Emanawari. Anyway.
Emanawari.
Yeah, that kid can be a difference maker for years. He has got Troy Polamalu like instincts. People don't realize, unless you watch South Carolina, he played all over the field. They moved him around. He could play off-ball linebacker. He could play slot. He could play safety. He could play either safety position. But he likes to move around. There's plays in South Carolina in their big wins that he come off his responsibility in the middle of the play and made either a game-saving tackle or an interception just off instincts. And we're talking about a young man that's like 6'4" and 200 and some pounds, 250, 220, who runs like a 4.4 or a little under. I mean, the kid's a freak. I would like to see them, if they can, to get a guy along those lines. But I don't know if he was already taken or not.
Let me see. I don't think I saw that name. Oh, yeah, he was. To the Bengals at number 17.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think a team in that middle of the draft, first round, is going to take him because he's like the young safety from the Ravens out of Notre Dame that the Ravens took 2 years ago. And then he really just blossomed last year into an All-Pro. And that's how this kid will be. It might not be immediate because it wasn't even immediate with Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
His rookie year, he didn't do much. But once he settles in, watch out. He's going to be a big playmaker.
Yeah, I think there's a interview where he's talking, and he says that Dick LeBeau told him something about, hey, don't worry about what they're saying about you out there. To Troy
because it was killing his confidence. Yeah, everything.
Troy said that they're saying bad things about me. I started laughing so hard. So if we're going position of want or position of need, I mean, that's the title of the show too here. I mean, there's some receivers that we'd like. Defensive tackle seems to be a position of need, though. And there's a guy here, a guy I like, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. He's available.
Yeah.
But where would you go, right, in this situation?
Well, for me, you want the first, like I said, a generational guy. I think Grant can play for a long time in the NFL. So can Yuka Uba or Ibuka, or however you say it.
Ibuka.
I think that so if you're going to bring in, say Rodgers comes in, you want to give him the strongest receiver core you can. You keep Pickens, you draft Ibuka. And you got a top of the line receiver core to really take a shot. If not, you would take him maybe because you're planning on trading Pickens, as you mentioned earlier. If you're not going, if Rodgers isn't coming and you just got Rudolph, you're going to run with him and a rookie. And if you take Grant, you're really committing to that, building the lines like they did last year with the offensive line. Build that defensive line so that you will be prepared when you do find your quarterback. But yeah, I would look at probably a wide receiver or defensive tackle. And it really kind of depends on if they get Rodgers or not.
Yeah. Well, this is the day before Rodgers, or 2 days before he signs, possibly. Yeah, it is a good. Him being on the team is a big question mark. Let's just say that he ends up being a Pittsburgh Steeler before the draft. Are you drafting Ibuka?
I would have to consider it. But again, to me, the bigger need is nose guard.
I think so too.
Yeah. So to me, if we're going need, and I would take Grant, who I think is to me, he's the best defensive tackle with the potential to be a nose tackle of the guys in this draft.
I think he's the best. This might be a little bit of a a hot take, so to speak, but I think he's the best defensive lineman in Michigan too. I think he's better than the other guy that's going to be in the draft in the top 10. The other guy is very small. What's his name? Grant? Nolan.
Mason Graham.
Mason Graham, yes.
Yeah.
I was reading up on him. He's very small guy. I was looking at
285, yeah.
Yeah, he's short. He's not very tall. Short arms. I think he's got 32-inch arms.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So it's Kenneth Grant. That who we're going with?
I would say Grant, yes.
Let's go Grant. Okay. Let's see. I'm not sure why. It's like he took too long. Like somebody else drafted him. We can tag Pickens next year too, as well. They're pretty sure about that. I'm sure about that as well. All right. Well, hopefully this doesn't take long to choose a selection. Give me a sec. And give it a little. Oh, it says drafting the player. There it goes. Just need a little bit of help.
Because it flies once it does it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here it is. All right, so let's see who was taken after and such and such. So let's go back up. Round one, where we were. All right, Steelers take Kenneth Grant. Ibuka goes next at 22 to the Chargers. So right after he's gone, Thomas goes to the Ravens, cornerback. Matthew Golden goes to the Lions. That's interesting.
I'd rather have Ibuka any day.
Yeah. The Browns end up getting safety Malachi Starks. Now that's a guy that on PFF have ranked really, really high. That's interesting that they go that direction as well.
He's a very good player, yes.
Trey Amos goes to the Patriots. That's cornerback. Saints acquired Trayvon Henderson, a running back. Jackson Dart goes 45 to the Colts. So Jackson Dart is off the table. drafted in the second round. Do you think that's high for him at 45?
I think it's about right.
I think it's about right.
Yeah,
I think so too.
It wouldn't shock me if somebody takes him in the first, but I think it's too early.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just trying to see names that are on the 30. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Tyler Shock goes to the Jaguars at 70. So before the Steelers can draft again, the other quarterback that made a draft visit is gone. Outside of these guys, I mean, there's Quinn Ewers. I think he's a guy that the Steelers talked to. I'm not sure if he did a visit or not. I don't think so.
I don't think
no, but I know they did talk to Quinn. Maybe they go the undrafted route, but they would definitely be hoping that Aaron Rodgers definitely made his choice to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. All right, so let's see. Up here we have Trey Harris as a wide receiver off the top. Jack Beck.
Yeah. Everybody knows who I like.
Oh yeah, who's that?
Jack Besh.
That's your guy?
Yeah, I've wanted him all along.
Tell me about him. I'm not familiar with him.
Okay, now everybody knows the story about his brother was tragically killed in that New Orleans New Year's night terrorist attack where the guy drove his truck down the street and hit innocent people. But if you watched him at TCU and then at the Senior Bowl and then at the Combine, he's a natural hands catcher, great hands. He runs really good routes. He has good balance. He's tough. He tries to block. He could be just a great slot guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a team first guy. I'm huge on him. He's like 6'1", 210. I think he can be special. Now, there's talk about him having trouble separating. But he does a great job shielding, and he's fearless. Like in the Senior Bowl, he took a couple of passes from the quarterback from Ohio State who threw it over the middle and hung him out to dry. And he took some shots. He held onto the ball, got up, didn't complain, went back to the huddle like nothing happened. Now, guys don't like getting hung out to dry, especially in an exhibition game. So this kid's tough, and he wanted to show it, and he did. And his speed running through the gauntlet at the Combine, he does everything full speed because he's not a burner. He's not a deep guy.
Right.
But he's a great route runner, possession receiver, and I think he'd be the perfect Steeler.
Nice. You're selling me on him. Other players of position of need that could go in this round for the Steelers, Dylan Sampson. We just talked about him a little bit ago. 30 draft visit guy, running back, speedy guy. Some running backs have already been taken off the board.
Yeah.
Jalen Milroe, quarterback. There's been some quarterbacks taken off the board already. If the Steelers are going to draft one, this might be where you're looking at. Let's see. Devin Neal, running back. DJ Giddens, running back out of Kansas State, another running back.
Like Giddens a lot, I mentioned him earlier. Yes,
I do too. I like his speed. I think I like Giddens over the Tennessee running back. So where are you sitting at though on this one?
Oh man. See, the problem is which guy is going to be there at their next pick. And we got their defensive tackle, nose guard, who I think is the biggest need. And now you got a chance to get two difference makers on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And if it felt like this, I would be really torn. But I told you how high I am on Besh. It's not that I don't. I'm higher on him than I am Giddens, and I really like Giddens because there's another running back that we going through it like this. I don't know if he's there or not. But I would have to go Besh.
Let's do it. Let's do it. He was up there. He's at the top.
Yep.
Let's see. The Steelers get their wide receiver number 3 to compete with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin to really build up that wide receiver room. And a guy that maybe perhaps, if George ends up not putting in, his what he needs to do to get paid, because I do think that the Steelers are going to target a quarterback next year. They have offensive
Yes.
tackles on rookie
Yes.
contracts. They have wide receiver. Well, they got the one wide receiver paid. You have your quarterback that's going to be on a rookie contract. I think that you're going to have enough money to pay 2 wide receivers, similar to like what the Bengals are doing, and without having to pay the quarterback allows you to pay your defense too. So I think there's a possibility there. But if he doesn't, pull his weight, then maybe perhaps you do need to have a backup plan.
Well, even if you go 5 deep, let's say you keep Pickens on a franchise tag for 1 year, and you bring in a rookie, you want to give him the best. You have Bish, you have Austin, you have Roman Wilson. Hey, I'm fine with that. Give me 5 top guys. I'm good.
There you go. There you go. So let's see who's gotten picked up after the Steelers drafted. So running back Damian Martinez. So not even one of the running backs that we were thinking that the Steelers could draft. Another one comes out of nowhere. Let's see. The Scatterboo running back goes to the Titans. Dylan Sampson goes to the Patriots at 106. RJ Harvey to the Bills.
Harvey's a good little all-around running back. He is.
Yes, Tootin to the Colts at 117.
Now, I liked him. He's got a little bit of a fumbling problem.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him. I mean, I'm familiar with the Pharaoh.
Yes.
All right, and Jalen Milroe goes 22 to the Broncos right before the Steelers. All right, so let's see who is available. DJ Giddens is available there.
Well, let's see who else is available, but I have a feeling I know where I'm going.
Yeah, me too. Devin Neal, the other another Kansas running back, is available. Demetrius Knight Jr., linebacker. Jordan James, running back out of Oregon. Will Howard, quarterback, is available. Let's see. Logan Brown, that's tackle. Ty Hamilton, another defensive tackle. Kobe Bryant, a cornerback.
Oh, dang. I am a Kobe Bryant fan.
He's all right. I watched some of what he was able to do. He's okay.
He is not a fast guy.
Mm-mm.
But he's like, neither was Richard Seymour. He's like that. He's long arms. He's very physical. He's very good at getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he is really good at tight man coverage. He's a great tackler. There, dang out. But at this point, I think you need so much help on offense. And I'm pretty confident in our cornerback room.
Yeah.
That I would go Giddens.
Yeah, I think I'm going Giddens too. And I think that's going to be the fourth round pick there. That's going to do it for our 4th round. Let's see. Yeah. And so Kenneth Grant, Jack how do you pronounce his last name? I don't want to end up getting
Besh.
Besh.
Yeah,
there we go.
It's like the CH, but it's pronounced like Besh.
Besh. And then we had JD Giddens. So defensive tackle, wide receiver, running back. I like it. I think if the draft fell this way, I would be fairly happy, especially if the Steelers had their quarterback answered. If Aaron Rodgers signs before the draft, I'd be very pleased with the way this went down. What do you think?
Oh, I would. What if, think about it. What if they do figure out and they trade back into that 2nd round? Let's say that, because I believe that you could trade back in the 1st round with some team that wants to move up, pick up a 2nd round pick, and still get Grant in the late 20s, around 30.
Mm-hmm.
let's say that the Steelers trade with Buffalo and they get, round 30. I think they could still get Grant. Would you consider Jackson Dart the second?
I would consider him, but I strongly think that there's a plan in place. And I think that the plan is the quarterback is going to be next year. I think if you're getting a second round quarterback, I think that's enough to say, all right, he's not going to play this year. We're going to have to see what he has before you go out there and make another commitment at a quarterback in the high rounds. And so I'm not sure if it follows the plan that they want.
Well, let's say that we don't get Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, okay, we're going to start Mason Rudolph. And I'm fine with that. We've talked about it. You take Dart and let him stay behind Rudolph. The odds of Rudolph playing the whole year as a starter, for any quarterback, it's not really good. But especially as the Steelers line improves and starts to gel, there could be some early struggles.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have a whole year to look at Dart and say, okay, we see he can be a starter down the line and that he has this potential. And then you can still go after your quarterback next year. With the draft's in Pittsburgh, first round. And look at the teams that are shopping their quarterback they picked last year. They just traded is it Milton? The Patriots just traded him.
Yeah.
Now they only got a fifth round. I think it was a fifth rounder for him. But Dart to me looks like a better prospect than Milton ever did. So you could move him for additional picks next year.
Yeah.
Let's say you get the quarterback you want, or you'll have two young quarterbacks, one's your starter, one's your backup moving into next season. Because this team needs to get younger, and you want that fifth year from a first round quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I just think that if you're drafting even in the second round, you have to give the guy at least a full season of games. 17 games to determine whether or not you're going to make a high round draft pick in that same position the following year. I mean, even with like Kenny Pickett, it was his rookie year. He got in there. I think there was maybe some upside there towards the end of that year. Even though the Steelers were winning, I didn't think it was because of him. I was pretty vocal about it. I got a lot of heat for it too. Well, anywho, the following year, had he not hurt his leg, I don't even know if they would have gone away from him. You know what I mean? Because I don't think if he didn't hurt his leg against Arizona, they would have ever seen anything. And even if he would have just kind of been playing at what he was, we probably wouldn't have seen Mason Rudolph, and we probably wouldn't make the playoffs that year either. But do we move off from him that quickly if he doesn't hurt his ankle? And where would the Steelers be now if he was still the only option, or if he was still the option at the quarterback position?
Well, I still believe, everybody knows this about me. I still believe that Matt Canada was the biggest problem with the Steelers offense by far.
Yeah.
The second biggest problem was the terrible offensive line. By Ben's end of Ben's career, the offensive line was decimated. It was a shadow of his former self. The Steelers tried to give him a shiny toy in Harrison Freiermuth and give him the worst offensive line of his career. And when he was old and immobile and he wasn't what he once was. That was all Colbert. That was all mistakes. Then they hired Matt Canada. One of the last moves by Colbert, it was a huge blunder. Pickett is not the kind of quarterback. He was a game manager at best. He was not going to carry a team like young Ben. So behind a bad offensive line with a terrible offensive coordinator, there was no shot. None. And then we've seen some of the worst wide receiver cores that I ever remember for the Steelers. Last year, it was Pickens and nobody. I mean, honestly,
Mhm.
they was hardly anybody from last year's wide receiver core that would have played or started anywhere.
Yeah.
And then Pickett, you had a huge, immature, raw athlete. None of the quarterbacks in the last 3 or 4 years have had a chance, to be honest with you. And in the last year, as bad as the offensive line was at times, that was the best offensive line the Steelers have had in the last 4 years. So I think now they have a competent offensive coordinator, not a flashy, not spectacular, but competent. The offensive line is going to improve just by having healthy bodies that are a lot of first round guys' talent. And we don't know who they'll add in this draft. I think they're going to add somebody, even if it's a project to work with. But there's some good offensive, sneaky good offensive linemen in the middle round, day 3. So I think we're going to see, based on the guys that didn't get to play last year, which we talked about last week, and the guys they had this year, we're going to see this accelerate. And that's what I'm saying. If you have a second round pick that they don't have right now, if they got one, that's when you might reach for a dart if he was still there. If not, there could be a defensive guy or somebody you'd want to take. But I would take this draft right here any day.
Yeah, I think it's an impressive draft. I think it's players that can make a difference and can get on the
Quickly.
field right away. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, quickly.
Exactly. Well, guys, let us know what you guys think in the comment section about this draft. If there's players you guys would have done or things you would have done differently, I'm sure because we all are GMs here, and we all know what's
That's
best.
the fun part.
So let us know in the comment section what you guys would have done differently. Do you have any final words there, Shannon?
Every day and every week we get closer, I get excited. Everybody knows I'm a draft guy. Usually I've been knee deep in the articles right now, and I enjoy doing that. But I'm just watching and looking and reviewing and setting up my own little evaluations because I like to see when the Steelers agree with what I've seen, which seldom happens. But they did with Frazier last year, which turned out to be really, really good. I was high on Roman Wilson, which I still think will work out. But
Yeah.
But I like to go back and look at the guys I wanted, like we did tonight, and see where did they end up and how long is their careers and how successful are they. And I will clearly, and I will, not bragging, but it might not always be for the Steelers. I look for guys that I think are fits for the Steelers. But the guys that I do recommend and I feel highly about, strongly about their potential, almost all of them still playing. And they're having successful careers because you can just see something. Like I think when we were looking at that draft, Scatterboom went to maybe the Titans.
Yeah.
There's a young guy that runs like a 4.65 or something, kind of James Conner-ish in his 40 time.
Yeah.
Very similar runner. Conner's been very successful. If you get Scatterboom on the right team with the right, blocking scheme, he was not right for the Steelers right now. But you get him on a team that's a power team between the tackles, a lot of traps and pulls. That kid, I was watching today a scout talk about him. He was doing it all at Arizona State with very limited talent, and he got him into playoffs and almost beat Texas. So he was kind of a one-man man, and he was still incredibly successful. So I just find that fascinating, and I like to see young men with that kind of heart, that kind of toughness and determination, because they will be successful on Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. I'll be honest, the Scatterboot seems like a really awesome jersey to have too. It's it just rolls off the tongue right. So
That's
just the
fun. It's a
name.
fun name. Yeah.
It is, if I got a puppy, I might name it Scatterboo if he was on our team. Just saying. Well, everybody, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Make sure you go and check out the audio podcast, Mind State of the Steelers. It airs out on Saturdays, Wednesday night. Shannon's going to be on Pump Your Brakes tomorrow is the Big Brosco show. You don't want to miss it. Shannon, take us out, my man.